Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Kristofer Brooks, for another LSB film podcast. Today we are speaking with Mark Byford, also known as the Bowler Hat Farmer, a straight-talking voice from the heart of rural Britain. Mark's on a mission, touring the country to expose how government green policies, corporate monopolies and global agendas are crushing Britain's farming. But this isn't just a warning, this is a call to action. From bypassing supermarkets to rebuilding food sovereignty, Mark speaks to those ready to take back control of what ends up on their plate. Mark Byford, welcome to the show.
Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Chris, thank you, dear boy, for having me back on the show. I think this is the third or fourth show we've done together, so thank you very much for having me back again.
Possibly the fourth.
Yeah, I think it might be. What's interesting, Chris, is since I started this journey, and when we very first spoke I was very much committed to the No Farmers, No Food campaign, and the journey's taken me such a wide. I know while we've done thousands of miles on the tour, but this journey has really stretched my imagination of what's possible in the food supply chain. It really has.
That's incredible. You certainly have been on one hell of a journey. I follow you on the old socials. I don't particularly comment much because I'm sad and I've got lots to do, but I have been following you and I have to say it's incredible. I am a little bit jealous because you must also, as well as the message that you're spreading out, you must also have this element of more freedom. You must feel more free because you're here, there, and everywhere. You're not.
Chris, it's interesting because at this point, since we've had to leave the family farm, we no longer have a home at this point. So we're kind of floating, got nowhere to grow, but we've got no commitments. And I said to Gloria the other day, I said, for the first time in my life, when I left home, I ran businesses, I've had the family, had the children at home, whatever the responsibilities have been, I've always had other people to worry about. Yep. And this time I've got me and Gloria in a camper van, and if we earn £100 we can put it in the tank, someone will keep us, feed us. We left home with 2 crates of food under the bed, and we've still got 2 crates of food more or less under the bed. And the great thing about it is, I hope
it's different food, because that's going to start smelling.
It's all tinned, you know what I mean? But the great thing's been that we've inside all of this, we've had the ability to just be and just enjoy seeing the country. We've been down as far as Land's End so far and up as far as Hadrian's Wall. We've started in Norfolk when we was in Thetford. We've done right across to Wales. The next section, we're coming home next week, which we're going to see you obviously at the Thetford event you guys have got going on. Cool. We're going from there to Derbyshire we're down to Land's End again, and then we're going all the way to John O'Groats. So we're going to do the whole stretch this time, and loads of talks in through Scotland and all sorts, and it's just beautiful. What intrigues me on this journey, Chris, is how people are perceiving the talks we're doing. Because when we started off, it was all about how the doom and gloom of what's going on in farming. But the problem is, since we've been travelling, Chris, we've met so many amazing farmers that are doing new projects and great things we've been able to see that we can then talk about. So it's now become a third of the talks about what we were talking about, and the other 2/3 is about the initiatives and the great projects we're seeing spring up, and how new incentives are coming about, and even projects what DEFRA are paying for now, and I've always been very outspoken about how useless I think DEFRA are, but they're even putting good projects in place now for farmers to get involved in. So I think there seems to be a shift on where we are in the food, on the food journey.
That's interesting.
What I tend to talk about to farmers is the transition, what needs to happen. So farmers are way over here, and the new food supply chain needs to become over here. We've got the old chemical farming, the old style of farming, lots of big tractors and big equipment. And over here, in my opinion, is the old style of farm, lots of small farms, lots of hands on deck. And those are now becoming community farms. And one of the things we're seeing is that a lot of commercial farmers are giving up small sections of the farm and giving it to community projects to then grow the vegetables what's needed locally.
No, absolutely. See, I was going to say, have you seen any local or regional success stories where farmers have taken back control of the distribution and pricing and stuff?
Yeah, very much. I mean, you know yourself, Chris. You did some work for me a year ago. It must be when we when I first talked about setting up the CIC. You designed all the logos for us, and a year ago, I really wasn't sure where to take the CIC and kind of how it would work in with things. But now, since we've been going around the country and seeing the amount of community projects that are setting up, I now know where we fit in. So the CIC will definitely be working to assist in setting up community projects across the country. So that's what we're fundraising for now. And the great thing in all of this, Chris, we've been from Land's End up to Hadrian's Wall, and we have seen so many different initiatives, whether that's vegetable growing on someone's allotment, on community allotments where they've got 3 or 4 allotments bolted together, community farms, what we're seeing popping up where they're 4 or 5 acres of producing fruit and veg, dairy farms that have come across from commercial farming, swayed right across to organic farm. We was in just north of Newcastle, up near Hadrian's Wall, and Chris, the farmer up there, they've taken 1,000 head of dairy cows. That's a massive farm on itself, but to do it all organically, all grass fed, and they are now producing I think I'm right in saying 5.2 million litres of milk a year, and none of it goes to a supermarket. They've come completely out of the chain, completely broken away from that food supply through Arla and through, the supermarkets and things that come completely away. Now we're seeing small farmers doing that, and they can do it on, scale. They can do that. But how do you take 5.2 million litres of milk? And we were down in Truro, and a guy said to me, well, it's absolutely impossible. We produce nearly 6 million litres of milk a year, and they're on the other end of the spectrum. And he said, we can't physically sell that amount of milk to the general public and through other means. Yet here's a guy doing 5.2 million litres.
I was going to say, what role do you think ordinary people can play in supporting British farmers and pushing back against the damaging policies that this government?
I think that is the biggest question, Chris, what needs answering. And now, for me, it's really easy to say, don't go to supermarkets, but I'm a realist. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have a farm shop near them, but there is things popping up now, Chris. There's things like box schemes. There's things like community projects, community farms, what sell stuff from the gate. Every pound, I look at it like this, Chris, every pound that the public doesn't spend with the supermarkets and spends with alternative farming methods is a pound that they take, but it's a pound the supermarkets don't take. So it's actually a difference of £2. And that's what people need to understand. If they only spent half of their shopping money outside, I think the other side is that people go, I can't go to a supermarket, I can't not go to a supermarket. I still want to buy some cleaning products and this and this and this. There's companies out there like the Good Food Project, Organity.co.uk, the goodfoodproject.co.uk, where you can go to their websites, buy everything, and it's delivered. So there is other alternatives out there if people want to search for those. People are lazy. I think that's one of the problems.
I think
so.
That is, a big part of
it. For ease, people go to the supermarkets. But when you look at the devastation supermarkets cause, Chris, through over packaging, everyone driving there and not paying farmers and the money not going back into the economy, going to the shareholders, all of that needs taken into account. If you spend £5 with a farmer, the chances are that ends up within the vicinity. You spend £5 with Tesco's, where does it end up? Well, it could end up in the hands of BlackRock, and then what do? Buy up some farmer's land who can't afford to farm anymore and then turn it into a bloody solar farm. And I've got to say on that, it's not, Chris, I know you guys have got a massive solar farm heading in for Norfolk, 10,000 acres or something, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
When I get back next week, I'm going to help deal with that one. That is solar destruction. That's not solar farming. And farmers need to understand what's actually involved. Do you know, Chris, it costs £1 million an acre to uninstall solar.
£1 million an acre.
£1 million an acre. And the farmers think that the electrical company are responsible for taking it out. They're not. The farmer is, because no sooner is the project set up, they shut the limited company what started it. That company doesn't exist anymore, so they're never going to uninstall it.
Isn't it a very similar situation with the wind farms as well, where the farmer takes on all the burden? Yeah.
Yeah, they're paid massive amounts of money to do these projects. I understand that, and a lot of them see that as their way out, their pension plan. But Chris, we were down in Truro and we went to see a beef farmer down there. And I said to him, I'm surprised, James, you've got, solar on the farm. And he laughed. He said, well, actually, that isn't mine. That's the neighbour's. He said, it was supposed to be on that field over there. He said, and I'm blessed. He said, because when they went to install it, they needed to come across his land with the cables. And he offered them the chance for it to be on his field instead. So they took it because it didn't need as much investment. He said, but the company closed as soon as it was installed. He said, and he's never been paid for the solar, and now he's got 200 acres of land he can't farm.
See, how is that even legal?
Oh, there you go.
Or lawful, should I say?
Lawful. But that electric's going into the grid and it's been sold, and that's happening all over the country, Chris. They're putting these solar destructional farms, and then that the electric disappears into the system, and the farmers don't get paid. And farmers are still falling for it, and I just ceases to amaze me.
So what do you see as the way out of this?
I think we've got right. There's two things I see. Sadly, I think we're going to lose 80% of our farmers inside the next 5 years. However,
farmers or farmland?
Farmland and farmers.
Right. Okay.
Right. However, what I will say on that, Chris, at the moment, you live in East Anglia, same as me, where I originate from. So whilst we're in Somerset at the moment and it's beautiful down here, I know from East Anglia, we've got huge fields, hardly no hedgerows. It's all about mass production of wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize and rape, right? There's no food. Everything's grown for the processing industry. So what we've got to do is get rid of all of that, as much of that as we can. We don't need rapeseed oil because it's carcinogenic anyway. Wheat and barley, a lot of that is being fed to animals. Well, they actually need to be fed on pasture. We've got the sugar beet. Well, we don't need sugar beet. We can, we need to up the amount of honey production and other natural sugars that are about. So when you start looking at all that land we don't need to produce on, we actually don't need the amount of land we're using at the minute for agriculture. Now, on the other side of that, coming from East Anglia and seeing how raped and pillaged the land is, what I will say is, as I've gone on this journey, Chris, and I know that you'd been over to the farm where we were, and how we were growing the veg over there on really good nutritional soil. As I've now gone on this journey, we've met a company in Lincolnshire what produces compost, and it's only got 3 components. This is Eco Green Compost. It has straw, grass and willow in it, and the content, it's a beautiful blend, but it sits perfectly on all the chemicals what are in it are just perfect for plants. So it's a beautiful soil, but it's also bang on the money with what the goodness it needs in it. Then I got the other day, which was for me was the icing on the cake. I got invited, Chris, to a maggot farm. Now I've been very outspoken. I've been outspoken, very outspoken about putting maggot protein into food. And when I went there, the guy said, look, firstly, that isn't going to happen. There's not going to happen for another 100 years at least. He said, when we started, that was where we thought we were going. He said, but for every pound's worth of protein we produced 10 pounds worth of the most amazing compost that anyone had ever used. So, and fertilizer. So now what we're seeing is that between all the things I'm learning, so between the electroculture, the compost, the no-dig system, the new fertilizer from the maggots, what I've seen, we can now produce really, really good quality soil that we can grow vast amounts of vegetables in a very dense area. So we now need a lot less space to produce a lot more food.
So maggots make good fertilizer then?
Oh, so right. So what they do is, so they feed them on food waste and they chew all of this food waste up into tiny, tiny little particles. When I see you next, I'll bring some with me and I'll show you because it's just mind-blowing. And then they also take the bugs just before they're about to die. They cook them and then grind them up. And that protein, as the maggots, the shells have a particular smell of the lava ant, so that they then the insects are scared of that, so they stay away, so you don't get any insects. And the other side is that the chitin, or chitin, as different people call it, the plants suck that up, and the plants get thicker leaves. And then, so if you've got really thin leaves, the aphids come along and take chunks out of it. If you've got really good quality leaves, they can't get to it.
Right,
So
okay.
they can't. And the chitin then makes them this glossy green, and they absorb a lot more sunshine, a lot more vitamin D in the plants. So there's all these things going on in the background, all these different people are making and producing. And I think in the future, farming's going to look a lot different, Chris. I don't think we're going to see these huge farms in the future. I just don't see it.
We're gonna have fly farms.
Well, Chris, if that's what it needs, let's bring it on. It. Do you know
So hang on a minute. Let me just rewind a minute. So let me get my head around the maggot thing. So
Yeah.
what are we talking? Like industrial blenders, throwing them and just turning them into paste?
So they cook them first, so they're dry.
Oh, so it's dry.
No, it's dry, so it just turns them into like a dust,
Oh,
and it's called frass.
so it's like magnet. So it's like maggot cremation.
Yeah. So you've got maggot poo with the maggot themselves ground up into it, and this calls the forms a product called frass, and it is just brilliant. I come away. I spent 4 hours there to interview them, and I said to him up front, I'm very outspoken against this. I don't agree with it. And he said, well, come and, do the interview. After 4 hours, I was that fascinated, I'd forgot about doing the interview, so I've got to go back.
I was going to say 4 hours is a long interview. That's like Joe Rogan style.
Yeah, so I was like, I hadn't got no footage at all.
Oh, that's a shame. But at least you can go. But you can go there now with a lot more information, so you can ask better questions.
And I did a video about it when I came away, and I'd taken 4 photographs while I was there of the different stages of the maggots and the flies and so forth. And I put a video together and sent it to them and said, look, is this correct in my remembrance and interpretation of things before I put this out to the public? And they said, absolutely 100% on the money. So, and now this week on the project we're working on, they've sent us a load of free samples down to be trialing and testing this in a proper environment, because they've come from an R&D side. They're now starting to look at selling this, but they've whilst they've got their own trial beds. So we're going to be where we are in Somerset today, Chris. We're going to be the very first site in the country that puts the electroculture, the frass, and this new compost together, and another product called Mad Moisture. And this is like it feels like a volcanic rock, and it'll hold a teaspoonful will hold 2 liters of water. So you can add it to your soil, and then you don't need as much water in the future because the water doesn't run through. It stays physically in the compost, and then when the plants need the water, it's there. It's just mind blowing. Some of the things we're seeing, Chris, going around the country, seeing the next level. We can look at agriculture now as a big vehicle driving around a field and go, wow, can you imagine that against a horse and cart? I think we're now seeing the other side of this, where we're going back the other way, and we're going to see some massive changes in the farming industry. I don't think you're going to see the big tractors in the future. I don't think you need to see that. What farmers have unfortunately got is it's all about rape and pillage of the soil in these days, and they need big equipment to go through heavy soil, especially now. I assumed, Chris, where we come from in East Anglia, we're on heavy clay. And I assumed in different parts of the country that there would be nice soil here and there. And even in Lincolnshire, the soil's so depleted now, it's starting to turn back to clay. So it's not nice, nutritional soil like it used to be, because that was obviously all reclaimed wetlands, and it was full of goodness. The organic matter is what's got to go back into the soil, and that's what's missing at the moment. So unless farmers are going to be putting that back, and that's what we can now do with all this new stuff on small scales. So to me, that's the answer, is a small scale, dense farming, loads of nutrition. You can taste the flavour. So that's what the CIC is going to be involved in, helping to set these projects up and to make sure these projects then succeed through by having volunteers involved. and to be in a position that we can tee up with companies like the Mad Company and the new the Eco Green Solutions Company, and bring these products together and produce alongside with the electroculture a really good, densely nutritional soil where you can go, wow, can you just taste the goodness in the ground? And like when we were kids, Chris, fruit and veg, what grew in the garden had flavour, and that's one of the challenges I now see is that you go to a supermarket and what have you actually got? Just water tasting food.
Bland. If beige was a flavour.
Mm.
That's what I was going to say. So, like, you've got some of these companies on board now, like the green companies. And obviously, I don't want to know their names, but are these companies that are also against, shall we say, the official narrative of what's going on in the climate ways?
I think what I would say after speaking to both sets of the people, they're both very awake to what is going on. And I think they also see one of them's farms 3,500 acres and realizes that on 3,500 acres, you actually can't earn any money, which is why he's looking at the compost side and saying, OK, well, rather than growing, an acre of grain for £160, I'll produce half a pallet of compost, which, in the reality of things takes up, 4 foot by 3 foot on the ground as opposed to an acre of land. So I think we're going to see a different usage of land in the future, Chris. We know under the nonsense of the net zero, we're seeing lots of trees planted across the country and great agricultural animals getting swallowed up all the time through solar destruction, tree planting. And I'm not saying trees are a bad thing, but we perhaps don't necessity need the amounts what we're being led to believe we need to reduce carbon. When I was
which is the elephant in the room, because there's nothing wrong
no one
with
wants
carbon.
to talk about, but Chris, when I went to university and did agriculture and horticulture, what was I taught? Carbon dioxide is the gas of life. The more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the more plants grow, which is why they want to remove it.
And where does most carbon come from?
Go on.
The ocean.
Ah. And do you know that we've had these certain things in the skies of late, and I know you've covered it, and
those sometimes pretty little trails that come out of the plane's bum.
Absolutely. Well, they put these pretty trails out at sea with a different type of liquid, let's say, and that's deliberately designed to confuse the plankton. So what happens is, obviously, we know that massive amounts of carbon dioxide is absorbed by plankton. However, if you kill the plankton, so what they do is they force it to grow really quick. It then bolts. It then dies, and it ends up with a thick sludge on top of the water. And as a result, then once that's dead, it can't absorb the carbon. So the carbon levels go up. So they then tax us a lot because the carbon levels have gone up. And that information was given to me by a pilot who had recently had to, how should we say, vacate his position at East Midlands Air Force Base because he was slightly outspoken against what was going on.
I suppose that pilot would be up for a chat with me.
I think he probably would, and I've got his number.
Well, I would be very interested to know more about that, my friend.
Remind me.
I shall. What else is it that you were sending me? Oh, that's it.
Victoria Rickson, the midwife we met on our tour. Yeah, she's a must. Anyone who hasn't heard her speech yet, that will blow their mind. I'm not going to give anything away, but people need to listen. I'll make sure you've got her number, and she'll love to do an interview. So yeah, I think, Chris, the biggest thing what's come out of this for me, obviously Glory's been on the tour with me. We've been going around the country. We've met some beautiful people. We've seen some amazing projects. It's given me a lot more clearer identity to myself because I was a bit confused when I left home. I'm like, well, where do I fit in anymore? We haven't got the farm. We're not growing. Where do I now fit in? Well, I kind of now see myself maybe transitioning through the CIC side and doing a lot of consultancy to get farmland back to being good quality. And one of the things, I'm not religious. I have to say, Chris, I'm not religious. Gloria is. I'm not. I'm a great believer in the universe will provide. However, what I will say is while I've been on this journey, I deem myself as a Christian because I was brought up under Christian morals, Christian ethics. I went to a Christian school. I celebrate Christmas, celebrate Easter. I've encouraged my children to do the same. So by default, I must therefore be a Christian. What I have seen on this trip is the amount of people that are now starting to think like me, that that way of life is maybe perhaps deliberately being dissolved, and are seeing themselves going back to that way of thinking, although they don't see it as religion.
Are you saying Christ is making a comeback?
Well, I don't know how to word it. What I do know is that the Christian values are making a comeback. And I think that's important because it's the first step for people to sway the other way. I think
The thing that we all will also have to remember is that all law is written in divine law. It's only the governments which have taken what's divinely ours and gave them back to us as privileges in license form.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah,
So
we do need
that's
to go
been an
back to that.
interesting part of this journey, because obviously, as we've travelled around the country, Chris, we've seen different people speaking on different aspects on stage with us, whether that's the Sovereign Project, who are coming at things slightly different to Cabby, the British Constitution Party, whatever it might be. We've interviewed all these people and they've interviewed us, and they've all got slightly different angles on it. But the one thing I do know is none of them have the same angle as the government. So that to me says, if you go back through any of our history and any of our laws, when you actually look at the word law against, as in an LORE, as opposed to what we're sold the belief of LAW, are very different things. Very different things.
No, 100%. So, how long have you got left on your tour now?
We finished the end of September.
Okay.
And then we've got to find somewhere to live. So we're going to start looking within the next few weeks, really, at what that might look like. We've had a couple of offers for us to go to different places to live. Obviously, the challenges with aging parents, Chris, and they live in Bury St Edmunds, that I've got to bear that in mind. But Somerset is somewhere I have fallen in love with, I have to say.
So the offer's at Somerset, is it?
Well, we've had an offer in Scotland. We've had an offer in
cold.
Shropshire. But I've just... I'll tell you what I love about Somerset, Chris. The minute you come down here, right, you have a different way of life anyway. But for me, I like small fields. I like big hedgerows. And that's all you see down here. Cattle grazing in fields. Everything that I want to see in my life around agriculture is here. You get up, we're sleeping in a bell tent at present, and where we are on the site here, in the morning, it is just singing with birds. The hedgerows are just full. And I've never, Chris, we don't really see insects across East Anglia anymore. They've just been obliterated by chemicals. And where we are down here, you've got every earwigs, woodlice, the butterflies and moths. I went out last night with a torch to walk to the toilet, and there's moths everywhere in the sky, and I haven't seen moths about in the evening for absolutely years in East
Anglia. Green fly of late.
Yeah, there is that of late. Now that's coming about, Chris. You know that we all moaned about these fields and fields of hundreds of acres of wild flowers, what were there to, for bird food and so forth. What's happened is that has been a very big contributing factor to bringing the insects back. And as a result of the insects coming back, then the birds come back. So you're starting to see sparrows again. I noticed when we were at home last, starting to see sparrows again. Not in the vast swathes there was when we were kids, but they are starting to come back. And that's because these big banks of flowers, the birds can come there, the insects there, the bees go there. That whole biodiverse economy is starting to come back again, that ecological side. And that's what East Anglia especially, and we're seeing this. And that's probably the worst place in the country that we've witnessed it. As you go around the country and you see different parts where there's sheep farming or they're, hill farming of some description, cattle, whatever it might be, especially when you get sort of from Stroud heading down towards the West Country, you come down this way and it's animals everywhere. We drove from Bury St Edmunds, Chris, all the way to Stroud, and we hadn't seen no animals in fields. and now you get down here, and every other field's got animals in it. So, and I think last time we went back, there was a field of pigs opposite Callaghass in Bury St Edmunds, but that's it. You just don't see the amount of animals what we used to have in the farms when we were kids. No. So that whole diversity needs bringing back. And unfortunately, at the minute, the farmers don't want to bring it back. So that's a big part of this quest of ours on this travels, is to talk to farmers. And we addressed 120 farmers the other evening, alongside Roger Meacock, the holistic vet. Is he someone you've come across?
No.
God, you need to interview him. Of all I genuinely mean, Chris. So he not only questions PCR tests and the testing of. So this winter, my belief is that we will lose about 80% of our animals to nonsense from TB, Bovia, bird flu, BSE, whatever it's going to be that they're going to wrap it up in this year. And they're all being tested by PCR tests. And we know that they're very useful because we know from 2020 how effective they were, Chris. So
effective that the inventor conveniently
died after he said they didn't work. Yeah. So I think, the relevance is that, again, another great person to interview on the show be Roger Meacock. He brings the science to it from a vet's point of view, and he knows it inside out. I've seen him speak on it now 3 times, and he blew my head. Because, Chris, we all know a little bit about these things, but we don't know the full in-depths of it. So it's lovely to work with these people. Now, when I can stand on stage with these guys and know kind of how to gear the questions with them as well, and to lead them into things, and that's lovely, because then you really get into, like we did the other evening with these farmers, we got into their heads. By the time we left, they'd gone from they're a crazy load of conspiracists over here to, oh my God, maybe we need to take this seriously. And that's where we need to get to with the mass of the population, isn't it?
100%. And as a farmer, that is your job, to plant those seeds.
Hey, isn't it just?
There you go. There is your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So where we are at present, Chris, if I can just elaborate on a couple of things. So the CIC, which we've set up, so we've now got the, that's all in place. The bank accounts are all set up. We have started fundraising via the bowlerhatfarmer.com. So if anyone wants to support the tour and support the work we're doing, they can do that at the bowlerhatfarmer.com. That money's going into the CIC, where we are going to start putting together community projects. So we are looking for, yes, we're looking for funding, obviously. Yes, we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for companies to look at sponsorship for us to keep us on the road and keep delivering the message. And obviously, I think the thing what's going to come out of the back end of this, Chris, is what we do next year, where we've done the tour this year saying about how bad things were. I think what's going to be next is the solutions tour, because that's what people really want to know now is, okay, we understand how bad it is. We understand how they're desecrating the food supply chain. We understand how they're absolutely going to be carnage with no food available. How do we resolve it? And that's the bit the people where we're going around to now. We did in Lyndhurst down near Southampton the other day. We did a great speech, about 100 people there. And by the time I'd finished, they were organising themselves to start putting together a community group to grow food. That's what we need to see. So as our journey's progressed, we're now in a position with the information we've got available to us to now start helping a lot more people. And we've had inquiries to go across and speak in Ireland now, in North and South. I had an inquiry yesterday to go to Holland to speak. We're going to do a Zoom call about that next week. So I think that, the possibilities for the information, spreading out across the world are becoming more and more. I did the Jim Ferguson show the other night as well. There was farmers on there from Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Chris, the word's spreading. And, what we think is perhaps our little problem on this little island of ours is very much not. It's a worldwide attack on farming.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we need to just attack back bigger, faster and harder.
Absolutely. It's a complete attack on our way of life, not just farming, everything. They completely want to obliterate what it is so they can build back their better. Well, we have news for them. They can
absolutely.
Get fucked.
Yeah, they can stick their better up their arse.
It's not going to happen. So, listen, Mark, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed having the chat with you.
Chris,
good to catch up with you. And I'm really happy to hear that the tour's been a success, and I hope it continues to go that way.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you in July.
I look forward to that, mate, and we'll see you there, and then we will endeavour to go on the rest of our tour before we do the Land's End and John O'Groats section. Chris, we've come across bridges, and I've been looking down valleys. I'd say the best bit of all of this tour has been Glorious Face as we drove down through Snakes Pass at the top of Derbyshire. I don't know if you've ever driven through Snakes Pass. If you haven't, it's got to be a must.
Is that the aqueducts?
This is where this is right on the top of the cliff face, and the road just kind of wiggles around the cliff faces, and you're just looking down to your left hand side the whole time going down Snakes Pass, and there's just mountains dropping down about sort of 700 or 800 foot, and Gloria's hanging out the window with a camera, and with all the best will in the world, the footage was amazing, but it didn't do it any justice. No. We live on an absolutely beautiful little island, Chris. I had never really ventured outside Bury St Edmunds, I've got to be honest. So for me to have gone from East Anglia to Wales, from Land's End to Newcastle, and now
the Caleb of Suffolk.
Yeah. Why would you need to go outside Suffolk, Chris? But now to witness the amazing stuff what is out there, it's just been fucking mind-blowing.
No, absolutely. Well, I hope you continue to have these brilliant experiences as well, because that is all part of life. So thank you once again. I hope everyone watching this has enjoyed it. And until next time, look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.